When NBA star Lorenzen Wright's life was cut down in a hail of gunfire,
Hello?
he left behind not just his devoted family, childhood friends, and rabid fans. The Hoops hero also left a daunting mystery that would confound Memphis police for years.
This death was very, very shocking and took a huge toll, especially the fact that no one knew who did it.
The history of Memphis is rich and profound. It's where the king of rock and roll once ruled, and where another king died fighting for the rights of all. But Lorenzen Wright staked his claim as the city's most recent favorite son. Not as a king, but a prince of the court.
Lorenzen Wright is a hometown hero, really. I mean, he was a beloved figure.
Lorenzen's swift rise to the top was rooted in deeply humble beginnings.
How long have you known him? How'd you meet?
Been knowing him since the 4th grade. We met between our mothers. Our mothers were friends. Growing just never lost touch. We always stayed in contact. Always just had a certain chemistry.
Lorenzen was a star at the University of Memphis. Then he catapulted to the NBA as the 7th pick in the first round.
Did you watch it on TV?
Yeah, of course.
What was going through your head?
I mean, just seeing my friend get drafted and seeing his family up there, it was awesome feeling.
This woman accompanied Lorenzen on his road to stardom. His wife, Shira, the daughter of one of his youth coaches.
Shira was with him basically from the very beginning.
Yeah, Shira was 5 years older than Lorenzen, but she was a beautiful young lady.
The Wrights built quite the brood along the way, 6 kids in fact, enough for a basketball team +1.
How was he as a father?
Oh my God. I'd say it's the number one thing that he cared about most in this world were his kids. He always put them ahead of anything, everything he did.
Lorenzen was crushed by the tragic death of a 7th child, a baby girl who fell victim to sudden infant death syndrome. The Hoop star established a scholarship in her name and got deeply involved in philanthropy.
He just always gave and gave and gave.
Lorenzen played for several pro teams before ending up with his beloved hometown franchise, the Memphis Grizzlies.
Everywhere we went, people wanted autographs, take pictures. It was huge.
How did he take all that in?
He enjoyed it, he loved it, he embraced it. He never was selfish or anything. Anybody that wanted an autograph, he kindly gave it to him. He took pictures with anybody who asked for it. He was very humble.
He had a long career, but very profitable as well. How much did he net over that time?
According to court records, he earned $55 million over the course of, I think it was 13 years that he was in the NBA.
But by the time Lorenzen Wright's hoop days hit the final buzzer, his rags to riches story and brilliant career had dimmed to a familiar cliche: too much fame, too much fortune, much too soon.
By the time he was done playing, he was broke, pretty much. I mean, he had 2 expensive homes that were in foreclosure, and according to Shira, they had a lot of creditors after them.
He's got a lot of family and people coming at you as well too. You know, you got this money and fame and success at you. So the problem was he was a giver. He gave to anybody who put their hand out.
It's that dangerous, 2-headed monster that stalks the unsuspecting sports superstar, luring him down a path of self-destruction, money, and women. Lorenzen loved to score in more ways than one. It turned out he was a chronic cheater, nearly a woman in every port, as they say. Shira was devastated.
You really get the sense of somebody who feels betrayed, hurt, cheated on.
Close friends were stunned.
They were together for so long, and what they put out to the public and to family and friends was a pretty much good relationship.
Lorenzen Wright had flamed out, broke, divorced, and now living hundreds of miles away in Atlanta, desperately missing his kids. He told childhood friend Michael Gibson he was rethinking his life.
He's like, I might as well get back to my wife, you know, and just be happy. That's what he told me.
He might as well just get back with her and be happy? Because he wasn't happy in the dating scene?
Right.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello?
They are words of panic. There's some cursing on there, and you hear gunshots, as many as 10, 11 gunshots, and this is, you know, him getting murdered.
Hello? I have nothing but gunshots. Hello? Hello?
It feels like he really didn't know what was happening until that moment.
Right. That's what I think. I think he had no idea.
The call was picked up by a 911 dispatcher in Germantown, and they never pursued it immediately.
What do you mean they didn't pursue it? It's still a shooting.
It's a shooting, but they didn't know it was a shooting. They tried to trace the call and they couldn't, and they just somehow just dropped the ball. They should have alerted Memphis.
It was an astounding and reckless error, one that hurt the subsequent investigation badly. Once Memphis police were notified, they traced the call and found the body in a remote meadow. Unfortunately, it was 9 days after the murder.
Whoever did it had a 9-day head start. You know, if they could have found the body in that night, you know, the trail's much fresher. He's been laying 9 days in 100-degree heat in Memphis, and the body is just severely decayed at that point.
And we'll just go wherever the investigation leads us. So we're not ruling in, we're not ruling out.
What clues existed were weak. Shira told police Lorenzen left her house that night with a box of drugs and a man she didn't know.
She mentioned that he was going to flip something for $115,000.
There was some speculation that Lorenzen got tangled up with the local cartel.
We had read some about him selling cars to some drug guys, so we just thought that was it. We were like, oh my God, what did he get involved in?
But there was no direct evidence linking Lorenzen to drug dealing. Whatever the motive, police believe the former NBA star was double-teamed that night.
How many shooters?
The autopsy reports and the police have said that there were 2 different shell casing types, or 2 different calibers.
9 days lost and not a tip or clue that sticks. Nothing more irritating for detectives than to have to put the case on ice.
That was the frustrating thing, especially for Lorenzen's mother, Deborah. Just this agonizing question of, who did this and why? And you just don't get those answers.
I really need your help, people. Come on, tell us something.
Then 5 years after her husband's murder, Shira Wright does something unexpected. She pens a salacious novel, one seemingly based on her life with Lorenzen. It's called Mr. Tell Me Anything. The
character, I guess he would be the antagonist in the book, a basketball player whose name in the book is Mr. Tell Me Anything. He so closely resembles Lorenzen in that he grew up in Mississippi, came up to Memphis to play basketball, made the pros.
But the novel covers so much more. It seems to tell the real-life story of an unfaithful marriage, including characters like Honey Blonde and Ride or Die Chick.
The theme that comes through is that of a very embittered woman.
Mark Paraschia is an investigative reporter for Memphis newspaper Commercial Appeal. He met with Shira at a local restaurant to talk about her book.
They're very graphic scenes, and again, she catches her husband cheating with another woman in the act of it, and the other woman, I think she calls her Miss Honey Blonde in the book. She runs into a bathroom, and Shira comes and kicks the door in and proceeds to beat her up, like is whacking her on the head and all that.
The words read like cheesy pulp fiction. His face was all adorned in bright red blood and hers in black because of the smudged mascara and tears. They were even now. She was done. His money was poisonous. In the book, Shira's character is fat-shamed, beaten, and even considers suicide over repeated infidelities on the part of the NBA player she's married to.
She said she struck him with keys, like had keys in a fist and punched him in the face and drew blood. So I asked her, I said, did this really happen? And she says, oh yeah, that happened.
Now, Mark is wondering if this book of fiction is based on a true story. He changes the subject to her husband's murder.
Do you have any idea who did this? Or
I don't know.
I gotta ask you this, but I mean, did you have anything to do with his murder or his disappearance?
I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an author, and the police should find his killer. I'm a minister of the Lord, and I've never been in any type of trouble or anything. I'm a mother, an author, and a wife.
And in fact, Shira had become an associate minister at Mount Olive Church. But it's possible her brand of worship includes a certain moral flexibility when it comes to the truth. Remember her account to police? That Lorenzen had a box of drugs and a friend she didn't recognize?
And I never said box of drugs. You can write that because that's not true.
What did you say?
I just said he had a box.
And they added the part about the drugs, I guess. Did you tell him the first time that he was at your house and he left with somebody that you didn't know?
I never told them who he left with because I didn't see that. And so that would be an untrue statement.
There are accounts that you told the police a few weeks before this that 2 or 3 guys came up to the house looking for him and they had guns. Do you remember that? Or?
No, I don't remember. I mean, I try not to even think about things like that.
She was asked directly, did you have anything to do with it? And I thought it was interesting, never once did she say no. She just kept repeating, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an author.
Yeah, and I saw that interview. I'm like, huh. When I saw that, I'm like, wow. Come on, Shira.
But here's where Shira's unflinching audacity will drop your jaw.
She told me in the interview that she was working on a sequel, and the sequel was going to be called The Whole Nine. And that's where I said, okay, this character in this book, Mr. Tell Me Anything, is he murdered? And she says, oh yes, he is. And that's what the sequel is going to be about.
It was difficult to discern whether Shira was just toying with Mark and even police. A sordid book and conflicting statements do not make a murderer, or at least one you can convict. In the meantime, Shira has collected on a $1 million+ life insurance policy, and in less than a year, she has just about spent it all. Lorenzen's dad, Herb, is concerned about the children's welfare. He takes Shira to court.
Prudence demands that you spend the money in accordance what's in the best interest of the children. If you buy a pizza, you don't buy a steak, or maybe you buy a hamburger.
Herbert Wright tried to get $1 million a couple of years ago. He didn't get it then. He's back for a second bite at the apple now.
Shira's behavior, no doubt, suspicious. If it were a TV drama, perhaps she'd get arrested and tried. But this is real life, and so far no one is confident that any case is provable beyond a reasonable doubt. Former NBA star Lorenzen Wright was gunned down by the rapid-fire bullets of at least 2 weapons. The case was far from a slam dunk. 5 years later, it was still steeped in mystery. Lorenzen's ex-wife Shira had plowed through $1 million+ insurance payout, then published a novel filled with jealousy, violence, and vengeance that she claimed paralleled her own life.
I said, this seems to be about you and Lorenzen, and she said, it is. She said, she told me 99.9% of the book is real.
A history of violence.
Yeah, it says she was beaten at times, you know, so somebody who clearly has, you know, some issues, perhaps of, you know, revenge and bitterness toward this basketball guy who was Lorenzen.
If one reads between the lines, a motive for murder may be gleaned from these pages. But in an interview recorded at a local restaurant, Shira insisted she wasn't feeling any heat.
They didn't have any real suspects, if you want to quote that.
So you asked the police that?
I did, and they just said that the list was long and wide.
Enter Wendy Wilson, Lorenzen's longtime personal assistant, who witnessed Shira's rage in the years leading up to the ballplayer's murder.
If she didn't get in touch with him, it was automatically, you know, I think she began to be mistrustful. And then from that to the anger, and eventually to, if I ever caught him with anyone else, I'm gonna him up. And she said a couple times, I'll kill him, I'll kill him.
Wendy actually recorded Shira's threats, played them for Lorenzen, and also gave a copy to police.
I just wanted to make certain that I documented it, just in case.
After Lorenzen's murder, Wendy reminded Memphis police of those rapidly relevant threats. And neighbors even reported seeing Shira burning items in the backyard of her home just after the murder. It was a blistering July. There's no doubt Shira Wright's status was now straddling the line between person of interest and full-blown suspect. Still, 2 more years would pass with no one in cuffs. And then it came, a break at the bottom of a lake. FBI divers searched for 5 days in a row without tipping off neighbors.
We were told it was a diving training exercise.
The covert mission proved to be more than fruitful.
Authorities located the murder weapon in a lake near Walnut, Mississippi.
The gun was traced back to one Billy Ray Turner, a man with an eye-raising connection to Shira Wright.
He was a deacon in her church. where she was a minister. He also had a landscaping business and mowed her lawn. Were they intimate? Was there some affair?
I mean, it doesn't seem that far-fetched to think that that played into this.
Police won't say who tipped them off or how they connected the gun to Turner, but it was enough to move and move quickly. Surveillance tape from our Memphis affiliate, WMC, shows the exact moment cops nabbed Turner at a convenience store.
This morning, the Shelby County Grand Jury indicted Billy R. Turner for the premeditated first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright.
The alleged killer was met with the anguished screams of Lorenzen Wright's mother in a Memphis courtroom.
How could you have murdered my son?
I understand the pain. Ms. Wright, but please be respectful of the courtroom.
And guess who's next to face the judge in the wrath of a devastated parent? Shira Wright was arrested in Riverside, California, where she made her first court appearance. She was confined to a wheelchair for reasons unknown.
At this time, do you waive extradition to the state of Tennessee?
Since Lorenzen's death, Shira Wright had married and divorced a police officer and was now on her third husband, a California record producer. I was seated right behind Shira Wright as she was read the charges.
Ms. Wright, you've been indicted by the grand jury, charged in a 3-count indictment.
Evil, evil, evil. Just the wicked witch of the South.
Note the criminal charges: first-degree murder.
First-degree murder carries 1.
Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
They carry anywhere from 15 to 60 years in prison.
And interestingly, criminal attempt first-degree murder.
Do you understand what you're charged with in this case, ma'am?
Police believe Shira had tried to kill her husband several times before and had finally succeeded.
Do you think police are thinking Shira and Billy Turner, both charged, were both gripping a gun and shooting at him?
I think they place her at the scene in the indictment.
But keep in mind, court documents refer to an unindicted co-conspirator.
Are you expecting charges against anyone else?
Can't comment on that.
Could that unindicted third party be the snitch? You can't pry that answer out of cops right now.
I will say this now and probably several times. This is a pending indictment. This is an ongoing investigation.
An investigation with a poignant name.
So Operation Rebound was what we thought was the perfect title for this case. Because in basketball, when you get a rebound, that gives you a second chance. That gives you another chance to score the basket. That gives you an opportunity to win the case.
Offer the court to plea of not guilty.
Both defendants maintain they're innocent and await trial behind bars. Lorenzen's childhood pal ponders the last 7 years of hurt and loss, 7 long years of living with an open wound, and it's still far from over.
And what does justice look like for you?
For me, he won't do anything because it can't bring him back. You know, I lost my friend, so I'd rather have him back than any of this.